I'm Liz Hill. Welcome to Podsnappery, the willful determination to ignore the objectionable or inconvenient, at the same time assuming airs of superior virtue and noble resignation. We explore things I find interesting, unusual, or annoying. So let's get down to it and spill the tea. We like to be right? By that I mean correct. We sometimes feel bad when we get facts wrong, or we learn that what we were taught is not exactly true. But honestly, you really shouldn't. We are human, and that means we make mistakes. We often learn from those mistakes, and that has led to innovations and at times enlightenment. Though more of the former, usually. A wise man once said, "History is never static. There is always new evidence emerging and new themes being developed, and there is always something new to be learned."
What?
I know, right? No matter how many times we have heard a fact or remembered something we learned in school, we need to deal with the fact that we could have been wrong. The older I get, the more I realize that you have to do the research. You need multiple sources. Hell, I even do that with the news today. But that is a whole other topic. So today I want to cover a few things that we have all been getting wrong.
Now let me correct you on a couple things, okay? Aristotle was not Belgian. The central message of Buddhism is not every man for himself. And the London Underground is not a political movement. Those are all mistakes, Otto. I looked them up.
No, not those things, although you're not wrong. Now, when we attend school, we learn about many things, especially history. But what if some of those lessons taught us the wrong history? No, I'm not talking about what DeSantis is doing to public education in Florida. Once again, a whole other topic. Now, plenty of historic misconceptions exist about famous figures in the world, especially about what they did or said. Most of these are tales that were told to add to their legend. Confused? I think I have a good analogy for you that can help. Think of history as the telephone game or the grapevine. When a message is passed along from person to person, it changes. The final form is often a very corrupted version of the original.
Berman's going to kill Johnny's brother at the Savoy Theater. Pass it on.
Furman's gonna kill Johnny's brother at the Savoy Theater tonight. Pass it on. Furman's gonna kill Johnny's mother at the Savoy Theater tonight. Pass it on.
Furman's mother's gonna kill Johnny at the Savoy Theater. Pass it on.
Furman's gonna kill my mother at the Savoy tonight. Pass it on.
Urgent message through the grapevine, Johnny.
Yeah? What is it?
Johnny and the mothers are playing something at the Savoy in Vermont tonight.
Furman's gonna kill my brother at the Savoy Theater tonight.
I didn't say that.
No, but I know this grapevine.
Exactly. The same thing happens with history, especially in this age of internet myth, memes, and propaganda. You can't just believe everything you read or hear, especially if it's on the internet. To that end, I found some interesting factoids that people keep getting wrong about history. First up, Neanderthals. Yeah, despite what we have been taught, Neanderthals were not inferior to humans. If you've seen the animated movie The Croods, you can see interactions between modern man and Neanderthals, aka cave people.
The sun?
No. Fire.
Hi, fire.
It's not alive.
But you said it was dying.
Sorry.
It comes from where you come from?
No, I make it.
Make some
Ow!
for me.
Okay.
Make.
It doesn't come out of me.
Make it!
You do this a lot.
Are you dead? Can I have your fire if you're dead?
Yeah, it's cute, it's funny, but it's also largely incorrect. The real Neanderthals were not dim-witted in the least. Research shows them as skilled hunters with diverse communication skills. They ate as per local availability and supplemented their diet with meat, much like Homo sapiens. The latest research shows that even prehistoric humans as early as 1.8 million years ago were not as primitive as we thought. Researchers feel a link exists between language and advanced tool making, and cutting-edge brain mapping is helping prove just that. As the tools advanced, it is possible the language did as well through instruction. Next, who's hungry?
Just a mouthful. I don't like green food.
Where's the meat?
Have they got any chips?
People talk of medieval food as bland, but frankly, it was anything but. It is true that salt was a luxury, but the peasants had generous access to spice, and the food reflected the flavors of what was easily at hand. Cloves, cumin, cardamom, cinnamon, pepper, and mace derived from nutmeg were just some of the common seasonings. Other flavors included ginger, sugar, vinegar, wine, raisins, and honey. There were plenty of meats as well, and peasants had access to seafood. At that time, lobster was actually considered lower class. If facing hard times, peasants could even grind acorns into a high-protein flour for bread. The food may have been less salty, but it was certainly not bland. True or false? President Abraham Lincoln did not believe in racial equality.
We're not, blah, blah, blah. I never lie.
Okay, this is kind of a tricky one. It is true, at first. Abraham Lincoln was undoubtedly a just man, according to history. He did outlaw slavery, but this was not his initial view. At least in the beginning, Lincoln did not believe in the equality of races. His views came through in a series of 1858 political debates with his opponent in the Illinois race for U.S. Senate, Stephen Douglas. At that time, Lincoln said, "I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races." He went on to say he did not believe black people should vote, serve on juries, or intermarry with whites. But later, Lincoln's point of view changed. In his last speech, he promoted black suffrage and said that every black man who fought in the Civil War had a right to vote. He also said that every black person had the right to enjoy the fruits of his labors. Lincoln brought about a change, but that change first began in himself.
It is a self-evident truth that things which are equal to the same thing are equal to each other. We begin with equality. That's the origin, isn't it? That balance, that's fairness. That's justice.
Next, we look at Hollywood legend and icon Marilyn Monroe. Was Marilyn Monroe, by today's standards, considered plus-sized?
No, 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 no. No!
The allure of Marilyn Monroe is alive and well, even though she has been gone for more than half a century. And other than a million stories about her death, people love to talk about her plus size. But that's a misnomer. With near hourglass measurements and a waist of 24.5 to 28.5 inches, Monroe would have been the size of 6 to 8 in today's measurements. Like all people, her shape shifted throughout her life. The size brought up in the plus-sized argument is a 12. However, we must remember that today we have more of a vanity sizing. Today's size 6 would have been a 12 in 1958. So while Monroe was voluptuous, plus-sized would not be the correct term for her. Fuck. Yes, I said fuck. Next, the F word. Was it actually an acronym? It's a popular pop culture tidbit that even celebrities like January Jones have talked about. While speaking on Dax Shepard's Armchair Expert podcast, she mentioned that her grandfather told her, "Fuck" is actually an acronym that stands for Fornication Under Consent of the King. Seriously? Why was her grandfather talking to her about that, and how old was she at the time? Historians doubt any king would have had the time or inclination to sign off on such acts, and I agree. While we are on the subject, it is also not an acronym of for unlawful carnal knowledge. Instead, the term comes from other languages. There's the Middle Dutch, Folken, the Norwegian, Fuka, and the Swedish, Foka, or Fok. And they all mean the same thing as fuck in English. Oh, and an aside, in English, the first known acronyms, as opposed to plain old initialisms, cropped up in the telegraphic code developed by Walter P. Phillips for the United Press Association in 1879. The code abbreviated Supreme Court of the United States as SCOTUS and President of the as POT, giving way to POTUS in 1895.
What the fuck? Don't you get depressed when the F word has to be in every single sentence? Right here. Oh, fuck, sorry.
Wow, I feel like I just opened Pandora's box.
But at the first crack of the lid, the box burst open. Monstrous creatures and horrendous sounds rushed out in a cloud of smoke and swirled around her, screeching and cackling.
Just one problem. Pandora did not have a box. She had a jar. Erasmus, the Renaissance humanist philosopher, turned her jar into a box via his writings in the 16th century. Either he made a mistake in the translation, or he may just have confused it with the box in the story of Cupid and Psyche. Next up,
you and all your silly English knickets.
Knights were not as chivalrous as shown in the movies. The knight who fights for his lady and dies for his king. Well, they exist in the movies. In real life, many knights were little more than hired thugs with armor and horses. They were heavily armed and liked to end fights with violence. Chivalry was not innate in them. Rather, the ruling class laid it down as a code of conduct to keep the fights to a minimum, thus keeping the knights alive so they could protect the elite. Chivalry in the movie is mostly poetic fiction. While knights' behavior with the ladies was different because courtesy demanded it, the women of the serving class saw a different side to them. Yikes, that's gonna leave a mark. Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 391 years, you'll recognize this building as the Taj Mahal. Rumor has it Shah Jahan had the hands of the Taj Mahal workers removed. Ew. Shah Jahan was a Mughal emperor who presided over what is modern-day India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and related territories in the 17th century. Under his rule, arts and culture flourished. When his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal, passed in childbirth, Shah Jahan was inconsolable. The story goes on to say how he ordered the construction of a mausoleum in white to house the body and memory of his beloved. The Taj Mahal was his dream. Pop culture says that later he ordered the hands of all the builders be chopped off. Allegedly, he never wanted them to make another wonder like the Taj Mahal.
Your life is yours, he said. But your hands are mine alone.
And yet, near the famous edifice is a settlement called Tajganj. It housed the workers of the Taj Mahal in the 17th century, and their descendants still live there today, practicing the arts and skills of their forefathers. So once again, that's a big nope. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. You probably recognize that as Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Ride. It described the horseman's midnight ride in 1775.
The British are coming! The British are coming!
But the thing is, he never said that. There are a few issues with the poem and what we were taught about that midnight ride. Let's explore them.
Everybody knows the story of Paul Revere. But what they don't tell you is that Paul Revere never shouted, "The British are coming." I didn't? No. At the time, Americans still considered themselves British. Then what did I say?
He probably said the regulars are coming out, because saying the British were coming would not have made any sense to anyone. More importantly, it was a discreet operation, so shouting would have given it all away.
So what do? Go door to door?
Exactly. Going door to door quietly was the best way to proceed. This way you know who to talk to and who to avoid.
The regulars are coming out. Thanks, Paul. Gotta find my pants and put them on the line.
But that took a lot of time, right? How could one man raise the alarm going door to door? Short answer, he couldn't. William Dawes and Samuel Prescott rode with him, and by nightfall, more than 40 men were on horseback going around Boston with this message. As a side note, 2 years later, a 16-year-old girl would do the same thing. On the night of April 26, 1777, 16-year-old Sybil Luddington rode 40 miles to muster local militia troops in response to a British attack on the town of Danbury, Connecticut. Riding all night through rain and traveling twice the distance that Paul Revere rode during his famous midnight ride, Sybil returned home at dawn, having given nearly the entire regiment of 400 colonial troops the order to assemble. Following the battle, General George Washington personally thanked Sybil for her service and bravery. Although every American schoolchild knows the story of Paul Revere, unfortunately few are taught about Sybil Luddington's courageous feat. Finally, on to vomitoriums. When we hear that word and see sketches floating around in pop culture, we might assume that vomitoriums were specially made rooms where Romans would go to purge, as in throw up, and then go party some more. In reality, vomitoriums were merely the entrances and exits to Roman theaters or stadiums. They were designed to ensure smooth flow of crowds. They enhanced safety and prevented congestion.
If you've ever visited Rome, you've heard about vomitoriums, rooms dedicated to puking so they could eat more during hedonistic feasts, right? How crazy is that? Too bad a vomitorium is actually just an entryway to a theater or auditorium. The name comes from the word vomit, which means to spew forth.
Note to self, avoid using the word spew in the future. Well, I hope this helps expand your mind, or at the very least clears up a few common misconceptions. Perhaps you found some of these examples surprising. Maybe others challenged your beliefs, but that's okay. As we quoted earlier, history is never static. So that wraps up this episode. Once again, the willful determination to ignore the objectionable or inconvenient, at the same time assuming airs of superior virtue and noble resignation. That, my friends, is Podsnappery. Thanks for watching. I'm Liz Hill. Remember, to steal ideas from one person is plagiarism. To steal from many is research.